Hello and welcome to Fruits of the Spirit. Today I'm answering a question. That question is, how does your faith move mountains, as we see in Mark chapter 11 verses 22 to 23. Christ's statement in Mark chapter 11 verses 22 to 23 is a very popular one, referenced all the time in inspirational and Christian speeches. It's so well known that I'm pretty sure most of you are already familiar with it. But regardless, let's browse through it. And Jesus, answering, said unto them, Have faith in God. For verily I say unto you, that whosoever shall say unto this mountain, Be thou removed, and be thou cast into the sea, and shall not doubt in his heart, but shall believe that those things which he saith shall come to pass, he shall have whatsoever he saith. Christ was clearly speaking metaphorically, because there's no physical use of tossing a mountain like Mount Everest into the sea. So what mountain was he talking about? Think about why you'd want to move a great object, like a mountain. You wouldn't do it for its own sake, rather there's something it's blocking. A goal that it's preventing you from achieving, and you courageously move the mountain aside to achieve that goal. Spiritually, there are instances where we will face major obstacles or challenges, as we strive to do the will of God, and no matter how big those challenges may be, we can rise above them if we have faith. There's hardly a better example of this than the classic story of David and Goliath in 1 Samuel chapter 17. Goliath in this case is the mountain, and the Israelite army feared the greatness of the mountain. They could not move it aside. Anytime Goliath would come around, they would run away, according to verse 24. But because David had great faith, he did not see Goliath as a great opponent, as he boldly told King Saul, Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living God. 1 Samuel chapter 17 verse 36. And just like Christ said, because David has such great faith, God actually used him to defeat Goliath. The three faithful Jews in Daniel chapter 3 also had occasion to move mountains with their faith. In the plains of Dura, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, made a great image and commanded that all his subjects bow to it. Most obeyed his voice, but Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego refused, because they had no regard for the image. Although it was a mighty image, or a great mountain in this context, their faith was greater than it, and they were courageous enough to move that mountain and dare the king. As we know, God delivered them when they were thrown into the furnace of fire. A final example is that of Joshua and Caleb. As the Israelites were approaching the land of Canaan, it became clear that those who they needed to conquer to inherit the land were mighty beings, the giants of Anak, as the 12 spies Moses sent discovered. Most of the people, lacking faith, feared the giants, but Joshua and Caleb did not fear them after seeing how marvelously God delivered them from the Egyptian bondage. In other words, they moved that mountain aside. Caleb in particular said, Let us go up at once and possess it, for we are well able to overcome it. Numbers chapter 13 verse 30. And because they moved the mountain aside, they could see the greatness of the land God promised them, and the amazing future they'd have with God once they started living in it. The Bible advises us to be courageous like these individuals, and not be intimidated by the enemy. As King Solomon said, The wicked flee when no man pursueth, but the righteous are bold as a lion. Proverbs chapter 28 verse 1. Paul the Apostle added, Watch ye, stand fast in the faith, quit you like men, be strong. 1 Corinthians chapter 16 verse 13. The way our faith moves mountains in our time is for us to not be afraid of living differently from how the society wants us to live. The system of things that governs this world has a completely different philosophy or way of living than that of God's children, according to John chapter 15 verse 19. And thus, it is like a great mountain in our path, just like Goliath was to David. In Revelation chapter 13, it was referred to as a great beast that will rise up and take control of all parts of the world. There are secular institutions now that are international and very powerful, but they don't acknowledge the supremacy of God, and in fact want us to become secular. If our faith is to move mountains, we should not regard the mighty power of such institutions, but continue to serve God and live spiritually. Isaiah the prophet told us in Isaiah chapter 41 verse 15 that God can give us the strength to move this great mountain, but only if we truly desire it. Behold, I will make thee a new sharp threshing instrument, having teeth. Thou shalt thresh the mountains, and beat them small, and shall make the hills as chaff. And that's the end of the answer for, does your faith move mountains, as we see in Mark chapter 11 verses 22 to 23. If you liked the video or learned something, then please consider subscribing or clicking the notification bell if you want to see when next I post. Have a good rest of your day.